what's going on? I'm Keith here at Sports Vibes TV, and today we've got a lot to discuss. I'm joined, as always, by our NBA analyst, Stephen Fox. Foxy, how's everything with you?
All is well. Shout out to you. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the SV Nation. Hope all is well. We'll be talking New York Knicks basketball. Yikes.
We definitely have a lot to discuss. There's been rumors swirling around not only Tom Thibodeau, but this front office. There's been rumors swirling around some players on this roster. We'll talk about that as well. And also what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the things Jalen Brunson had to say after the Knicks' most recent embarrassing loss at the hands of the Dallas Mavericks, someone that the team probably really should have stepped up and tried to beat in order to, put on for their new teammate, Jalen Brunson. So we'll dive deep into some of his words, and we'll also look at Tom Thibodeau, look at his scheme, see exactly why things might not be working out with the Knicks, because, a lot of people may, offer up opinions, but we try to be solution-based here on Sports Vibes TV. So we do have some highlights that we want to play, let you guys view what the team is doing out there, and you can draw your own conclusions. But before we dive into it, we'd just like to give a shout out to the chat. We've got 32 people in the chat. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I see Pudge Nice, Geraldine MacGyver, Batman, David YT. Appreciate you guys tuning in. James E. Moore. Foxy, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Tell him Alejandro, Staffadon, Kiko Rodriguez. By the way, Geraldine McGuire is the solution to all of our problems. I bet she'd be a hell of a GM versus what we have. So I love you, Geraldine. And we'll be touching base and chopping it up with you as the show goes on. But thanks so much for your support.
Yep, thank you guys. We really do appreciate it. It's been an early season. It's been a short season so far, but it's been tough for Knicks fans, especially if you're, emotionally invested in this team. Some of their recent performances have just been something that, is gut-wrenching, whether it be close losses or just looking at the lack of effort we're seeing from some of these guys out there on the court. So you guys are still tuned in. You guys are viewing with high effort, high energy, and it helps us move the show along. So just want to say thank you. Really appreciate it. Also to the replay gang. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys help drive the show in a big time. So thank you for that. So now to start the show, just Foxy, I wanted to give some of your thoughts on the most recent loss to the Dallas Mavericks. I touched on it a little bit a little while ago at the start of the show. This was a game, Jalen Brunson's matchup against his former team, and you would have liked the team to come out with a little bit more energy, especially in that second half, trying to, help Jalen Brunson get some love from the squad by getting a victory over his old squad. So, Foxy, how did you feel about the game overall?
Song remains the same. Played okay in the first half, and then the quote unquote the third quarter of doom. Came out with nothing, and it was over. Just looking at the stats, they took 30 more threes than we did. They made 14 of those, so that's 42 points. Bingo, catnip, game over, man. You cannot do that in today's NBA. 19 turnovers. And it was just, the energy was just, like I said, at home. To have, how many times do we talk about this? To have energy like this in front of your fans, don't you have pride? Forget about anything with Thibs, not liking Thibs, the front office, this. You have to have personal pride, man. And that every time you go out there, you want to do the best for yourself and hopefully for the fans too. The fans are the innocent ones. The fans are the ones that pay the tickets and stuff. Show some love with effort. We can deal with losses. We just can't deal with lack of effort.
Thanks, Foxy. And what we saw in the third quarter and also the fourth quarter for the short amount of time the starters were actually in, did the starters even come back in the fourth for the most part? I think most of them sat in the third. And then by the time we got to the fourth, we were throwing in the towel. It felt like with 7 minutes still left to go in the game. And I think that's crazy. The fact that we're throwing in the towel with that much time left and we're at home. I understand this is the first game of a back-to-back, but you would like to see a lot more fight from this team, especially when they're out there performing in front of the home crowd. And Clyde said it during the broadcast, it's an ominous sign. The Mavs were not playing well in that first half, and the Knicks just could not put any distance between us and them. And in the second half, in that third quarter, we saw both Luka and Dinwiddie start to get it going, and we just really had no answers for them defensively. And I think one thing about this team that we can say carries over from last season is the fact that once we realize we don't have the answers defensively, the team just lets go of the rope. And I think that's exactly what we saw in the second half of that game. So it was extremely unfortunate. I mean, you hope the team can come out today and have a better showing. We're going up against the Cavs, and we have another star on the other side of the court in Donovan Mitchell. I think we did a solid job containing Luka initially, but I just don't know what happened in that third quarter. He was able to get to his spots out there on the court and, score for himself and also create for others, whether that be because of his gravity or actually finding them for easy buckets. So, like I said, hopefully this team can kind of figure it out. And, if we're going to talk about Thibs, and if you look at the way he runs his defense, I think we are going to continue to see this team struggle, but we'll dive into it a little bit further.
You have a super chat?
Yep. James E. Moore, thank you for the contribution. $10 super chat. He says, Thibs yelling for RJ to sub in Cam in second quarter was embarrassing. No accountability for other players making worse mistakes. Yeah, definitely. Yesterday's game was not a great showing for Cam, but I think what Thibs does is he allows other players to play through their mistakes a little bit. And of course, I'm not going to sit here and say Cam didn't have some egregious mistakes, whether it be, stepping on the court, that turnover, or, him falling and turning the ball over when he was trying to attack the basket. Those aren't necessarily plays you're thrilled about, but for the most part, you look at other guys out there on the court and they're doing some boneheaded plays out there and they're given the opportunity to work through them. And I think Cam, you look at a young guy like him, he needs to be out there in the swing of things and be allowed to work through them in order to get better. Now, if he's being a detriment to the team and it's something that you have to fit him to kind of enforce the fact that, he's making too many mistakes, I understand. But I think Cam should have been given a little bit more lead out there. Foxy, your thoughts?
Yeah, you made an investment. You gotta stick with it. And he's a young player, like he said. I just wish he can get some more burn. He was going and then had the groin injury. Thank God he didn't miss a lot of time, but enough that maybe his timing's back off and stuff like that. So, yeah, I hope he gets some time, whether on the second team, whatever. I think Grimes, I hope his shot falls, but I think Grimes next to Brunson is a good it's a good pairing for the deficiencies we brought up about Brunson on defense. But yeah, it was really a depressing watching this team, and we're a quarter of way into a season. So whether it's a new point guard, guys, you would think there would be some semblance of chemistry by now, and on both sides of the ball. Bad enough what we're seeing on offense, but the lack of communication, whether switches or, Obi doesn't know what the hell he's doing on defense, man. I mean, I stop, rewind, watch, stop, rewind, and I'm like, Jesus, he has absolutely no idea what the hell he's doing out there. And Julius, he drives you crazy. He has a great possession, and then the next possession he takes it off. The lack of, who was it? Finney, three-pointer. I don't know what Julius was doing, man. He was not covering his man, that's for sure, but there were two guys in the paint, so he didn't need to cheat toward the paint, but yet he hung out there. So it lacks logic. You're just saying, are they spiteful? Do they not care? Why are they playing like this? I'm reaching for answers, but this is like, it breaches any logic. Like, why are you doing this, man?
And we'll get into it. We'll put some footage up for everybody to view, and maybe I think one of the plays is not the exact play, but it's somewhat similar, where you see Julius Randle just kind of out on an island, not guarding his man and not really in a play to guard anybody. And I think it's more so the scheme and how Thibs is designing his defense, as opposed to Julius Randle just going off and doing his own thing. Because at times you see also Jalen Brunson in those same situations, and we'll dive deep into it. But normally that happens when somebody is standing in the weak side corner, and Thibs in his defense, he wants to have everybody kind of shift over strong side and pack the paint. So that's why you see some open threes, especially on the other side of the court. And if you're watching on MSG, you hear how many times Clyde is saying that's the type of pass you cannot allow. You hear it over and over and over again, and that's because
cross court pass is like,
yeah,
exactly. Every time he says it, even Wally, what you said before was beautiful, and why we all love, Clyde. It's like saying this is ominous, and sure enough, he called that, and Wally felt the same way. It's like, I see a storm coming in. This don't look pretty.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned Quentin Grimes. I was actually in a restaurant with Quentin Grimes the day before on Friday. He was out in White Plains, I guess, having dinner. So that was kind of crazy.
Tall.
Yeah, you sit home and you watch on the TV and you assume all the guards are about your height. At least that's what I do. I assume the guards are probably my height. But when you see them in person, a lot taller. And I'm like, I'm looking at him. I'm like, damn, really 6'5" for real? Because you could tell that he was not, a regular person that probably did a normal 9 to 5. He was some sort of athlete. And I was looking at him. He was in the cut. I was like, oh, that's Quentin Grimes trying to be low. I was like, all right, I ain't going to bother him. Let him mac how he mac.
Yeah. The thing always shocks me when you meet him is, like you said, not only that, but how wide they are. Yeah. So I'm like, this is a guard, man. But damn, that dude has Earl Campbell thighs. Holy moly. No wonder he jumps through the roof. The power that they have. But some of these guys are just as wide as they are tall. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Salute to George. He says, Keish, you 6'2". I wish. 6 even. I had those 2 additional heights, I might have made it to the NFL. At least that's what I tell myself. All right, so
if I had 2 more inches.
Here Foxy goes. SBTV after dark. Oh man. All right.
Hey, with this crazy stuff going on, if you don't goof around, man, you'll be crying. So,
yeah, man, you gotta have some fun. Gotta loosen up.
Gotta have some fun, man.
Yeah, it can't be too serious. I don't like the Joker says, why so serious? All right, so with these poor performances, you have to assume that James Dolan is not thrilled. I forgot which game he was in person, but he was actually on the court sitting, and you kind of saw him in the background, and it was definitely a poor loss. Like, was it the game before we beat Detroit? Not 100%.
Yeah, who did it? Somebody had a notation, like he was like shaking his head.
He was shaking his head, yeah. So you know James Dolan is not thrilled. So I think at this moment, he's probably evaluating everybody's job. He might not come out. It is coming up that people are reviewing that, assessing the organization from the top down. But you can see what Ian Begley had to tweet. That's a little bit more on that matter. Let me put it up on screen. So Ian Begley, this is from SNY. Internally at MSG, there is heightened scrutiny on the club's game-by-game performance, and it's not solely focused on Thibodeau. The Knicks' slow start has the organization under a microscope, and we've been saying it from time and time again. Tom Thibodeau is on the hot seat, and he should not be the only one that should be on the hot seat. You look at what Leon Rose and co have done. I don't think they've fielded the most competitive team. And also, if you look at Tom Thibodeau and how he has directed this club, I don't think he has necessarily put us in the best position to succeed either in the short term or in the long term. And James Dolan already, last year we had the reports come out that it was on Leon Rose to make the final decision as to whether or not we were going to bring Tom Thibodeau back. And the fact that Leon Rose chose to bring back Tom Thibodeau should also factor into his job security. The fact that he's pretty much doubled down by bringing Tom Thibodeau back and then going out and, spending X amount of money in free agency, whether that is to bring Jalen Brunson back, to bring Jalen Brunson or to bring Mitch back and to also extend RJ. So I think the whole organization should be under scrutiny and everybody should feel like their job may not be safe, because this is not a product that I think fans could be proud of, especially with the lack of effort with.
Yeah, effort, communication. It's amateur hour.
Yeah, thank you, George. Into the Knicks first. Make sure you guys are tuned in and subscribe to his channel. Drop some dope recaps, whether they're edited or live streams. He says Dolan shaking his head was during the Memphis game at MSG. So yeah, I believe that was the game before we beat the Breaks off of Detroit. Prep Punk NYC says I'm 6'2" with the fro out. Yeah, most likely, maybe even taller. Been growing this since COVID hit, so I might be 6'7". All right. Let's see what else we have going on, and also just to look at what some of the players have been saying. I want to put that on screen for you guys as well. This is coming from Grimes. It was tweeted by Tommy Bear, so to him, because I felt like in the third quarter, Dallas came out with a lot more intensity, focus, and sense of urgency than us. I feel like in the third quarter, we didn't make the 50-50 plays or get the offensive rebounds. We let them get off threes and are not giving maximum effort. Red flag right there. There's no reason the team should be at home not giving maximum effort. And they weren't even giving 90% effort. They were down somewhere in the 60-65% range. So it's, to continue to tweet, it says, this is not the first time we've heard this from a Knick over the first 20 plus games this season, and that's a significant indictment. So Foxy, you read this tweet, you heard what Grimes had to say. What were some of the first things that came to mind?
I'm glad he's a young player. Sometimes they're worried about speaking the truth, but he's speaking the truth. And, besides effort, the selfishness, how many times you, me, and the SV Nation are watching and like saying, yo, he just looked that guy off. He was open. Holy moly. Oh my God. So we're seeing the worst, on both sides of the basketball. We're seeing lack of effort, lack of execution, lack of, and playing selfish. So, so if I was the owner, I'd be shaking my head too. Like, hey, I showed faith, but we're not even playing out here, man.
I mean, I just can't get over it. The lack of effort that we've seen and the lack of production we've seen from this team at home is just mind-boggling. It's like they can't handle some of the pressure that comes with playing in front of your home fans. I think you're on the road, you kind of expect the boost. So you're a little bit more, you're built for it. You understand that's what's going to come on the road. But here at home, you expect the fans to kind of give you that little push when you need it, especially like late in games when your tank is kind of low, but you can kind of ride off of the energy that's given to you by the home fans, by the home crowd. But with the performance we've seen, what is there really for us to share about? The lack of effort, uncontested threes. People are getting to the paint with these when Mitch is not in there to kind of clog the paint. And I think if this is going to continue to happen, fans aren't just going to make a complete turnaround. It's just going to get worse and worse. So if this team continues to lose at home the way they've done so far this season, it's just going to ratchet up the intensity to try and move or make a major change, whether that be the coach, which I think is most likely to happen first, or the front office.
Yeah, well, we've talked about the coach being the low-hanging fruit, but that really doesn't get to the problem, the solution. The solution is somebody who's putting this roster together and saying, yeah, we can't compete. And, who's making the draft choices? You're putting together role players, and we're seeing the role players that we're given. They're not in their first year. So you see players in their second year or their third year, and you're like, yo, they're not hitting it, man. They're not shooting well. They're, the whole thing about as the years go on, obviously we know development's not linear, but you have to see growth. And if a guy's not shooting well from a regular, at the rim, and he's not shooting from three well, and they're not executing, or they're dribble. IQ the other day, if he dribbled one more time, I was going to break my TV, man. It's driving me crazy. So, but I'm afraid that's, with a front office like this, that's when you make a desperate move. And the last thing we want is a desperate move. I'd rather just say, all right, we're going to do the low-hanging fruit, get rid of Thibs. We'll put in an interim coach. And then really, like we talked about in How to Fix the Knicks a couple of streams ago, folks, you haven't watched it, check it out. We talked about taking a step back. Everyone talks Leon. Everybody takes Thibs. The person who's responsible for putting the roster together with financials is your general manager, at least on every other team in the NBA. So we made suggestions about bringing a real basketball person in, and that's going to not trade back maybe in the draft. Shout out, like you said, to George and to the Knicks first. We're shaking our head watching AJ Griffin light it up in down for the Hawks and saying, wait a minute, that was a number 16 pick, and he's lighting it up. What the hell are we doing? So we have AJ Griffin here, and we have Trevor Keels. I don't know. I think maybe AJ is winning this one out. But Yeah, it's tragic.
Hear you on that, Fox. You said a few things that I wanted to touch on, but I wanted to just give a quick shout out to Preppy Punk NYC. He says coaches should adapt to the roster, not the roster to the coach. Facts. And I think if you look in basketball, any coach that tries to, go about it where he's, trying to force players that don't necessarily play his style, he's trying to force it on them. But they really don't see much success. It's those coaches that can be flexible and can build their system around the talent that they have on the roster, play towards your guy's strengths. And I think that's something Thibs definitely does not do. And I know you say Thibs, firing Thibs is the low hanging fruit. And, there do need to be some changes in the front office. But my thing is, I think if we were able to fire Thibs now, we're 21, 22 games into the season at this point, that would give us, close to 60 games to now evaluate this roster in a system that's not as archaic as Thibs' system. And I think this would do two things. One, it will allow us to fully evaluate the roster and see what these guys can do when they're given, a much more modern offense and defense to play. And if we do this, then we can, leave this season with a better understanding of what we have on this roster. And at that point, it'll also allow us to better analyze or better evaluate the front office, because whether or not, the young guys are able to show that they can perform in a more modern style offense or more modern style defense, then at least you can say, all right, the front office kind of understands what they are doing when it comes to talent acquisition and should be given a little bit more time. But if we have those 60 games and it looks like, IQ really isn't the goods, OB isn't the goods, and things like that, then you have a little bit more information to go ahead and move off of the front office if you're still on the fence. Me personally, I'm not really on the fence with the front office. I like some of the things that they've done, but in a whole, I'm really not thrilled with the direction at this moment. But if you're someone that's on the fence, like I said, you would then have 60 games to kind of analyze roster and see whether or not the front office knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Hey, Keys, do me a favor. You make sure you talking. Kaiser also picked it up that your audio is going in and out.
Is it? All right, let me see. The whole stream or just now?
I noticed it during the stream, but I didn't know it was because you were leaning over and away from your mic or there was something else. But thanks, Kaiser. While Keith just looks at that, just shout out Kaiser. Thank you so much. Day one, man, you're awesome. Wiseland, hope all is well. Andrew K, love what Atkinson was doing with the Nets. Thought he should have been the guy. You got that right. Thomas Banks, Randall, and RJ don't want to play with each other. They shouldn't be playing with each other. Their styles and stuff. Kept Giggles, IQ is good. He can dribble all he wants. Yep, straight down his shirt. Hardwill, shout out to you for the love of the game. If you haven't subscribed to Worldwide L and Hardwill, please do. For the number 4, OUR, the love of the game. Great guys, great content. And again, Preppy Punk NYC, great comments, man. Shout out to you, man. I really like the stuff that you're saying.
Yep, salute. Thank you guys for tuning in. A little bit better, Foxy?
Yeah, it's you were great, and then it goes in and out. So we'll do that, and Kaiser and the rest of the gang will keep us honest to make sure that we have the great audio. Thanks, Kaiser.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys holding it down and making sure everything is running fine. Like we say all the time, you guys are the third co-host. You guys help us with the audio engineering, and you help us hosting the show as well. So appreciate that. Let's move further along. Fly God, aka C-Mac, I'm with you on that one. Give Cam the keys. I call him Cam, play that man Reddish. Let's see. So let's go and look at some more comments. These ones are pretty interesting. This is from Jalen Brunson. So his comments after the loss, he says, the Mavericks wanted it more today, and it definitely is concerning. I think that's something that can be fixed. So again, another player mentioning, another team has more energy, has more effort, and just wanted the victory more than the Knicks. He continued. He says, I think Coach Thibs has done a great job. He's been able to put us in positions where we need to succeed. He knows where to put those puzzle pieces. It's on us to execute. He's going to get a lot of the blame, but we're the players out there battling.
Battling.
Oh, yeah, not battling. Yeah, it kind of threw me off for a second. I said, we're the players out there not battling. Yeah, because you're supposed to be battling. That's why it kind of threw me off. And the fact that you admit it was crazy, because I think, this team, there's quite a few losses we've had so far this season in which this team has not been battling, and I think that's starting to become a trend. And at some point, you have to make a move to stop that trend. And I think the first one would be moving on from Tom Thibodeau, but also, I kind of take it with a grain of salt when you hear Jalen Brunson talk about the coach. And, I'm not saying he's dishonest or not an honest individual or whatever the case may be. But you also have to understand when he's talking about Tom Thibodeau, he's also talking about his father's boss. So I don't know if, it seems like those two have a pretty decent relationship. I don't think he'd want to say things that would necessarily make life a little bit more difficult for his pops. So that's why, to me, it's always kind of tricky when you bring a family member into the workplace, because now it kind of changes the dynamic of things. So Foxy, what are some of your thoughts about Jalen Brunson and his comments after the loss?
Did you see any of the footage of Obi being mic'd up?
Yeah, I saw a few of it, bits of it.
Did you see when he said something to Brunson? Brunson just stared at him, didn't give him any reply, just stared at him like you're a fucking clown. I'm dead serious. He looked at him like a real stare, stare, like you're a fucking clown. You're playing up for the camera. You playing up for this segment, and you don't even know your goddamn defensive assignment. So I think some of the stuff with Brunson is like saying, yeah, but you know what? We play on the damn court. So anything you have, we're the guys that have to execute. We're not executing. So it's so easy to say that, Thibs is the one, but we're not executing. And when you have a guy like that, that's more worried about making FaceTime, making people laugh. Hey, let me sign the little kid's jersey. Isn't that sweet and everything? So I'm that type of guy. Like I'll give you a kiss after the game, but get the fuck off the court during the game, kid. I'm about to get serious. So Brunson had a look on his face like, I don't dig this dude, Obi. I don't dig him at all. You're not going to get serious. So I think he's surrounded by not serious guys. And he sees Thibs, and whether he's a company man and what his dad and all the stuff, that the relationships you're talking about, but I think there's a real element of saying, who did you surround me by? As he said, they wanted it more today than us. So I'm surrounded by guys that are more worried about doing interviews or doing stuff than actually winning. Or if we lose, you see me after the game, they're hugging the other team, they're smiling, they're laughing. Is Brunson and a few of there's a couple only of the other guys that are like upset. You show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. So these guys that are cool with us losing after the game and just walking around and stuff like that, bad roster construction. We don't have the dogs on this team that we need.
Yeah, definitely have to have a little bit more fight on this squad. And I think, there have been some noise about Obi maybe being a little bit too soft out there. You've mentioned it. He's not being, physical, getting to the line much. That's something we would definitely like to see from him. Also, he doesn't fight for the rebounds as much as we would like as well. And I think that's definitely something that's a bit concerning when you're looking at Obi and you want him to develop into something or to a player that was worthy of being picked at number 8. And it's just, we're in a tough spot right now where, Obi really isn't, I think, the team really doesn't put Obi in great positions to succeed. And then Obi, with his personality, it just seems like he's pretty happy-go-lucky for the most part. And I see how that might, rub some people off the wrong way, whether that be fans or even teammates, if what you're saying is correct. Because, I missed that part. I didn't catch it. So I'd have to go and look at the highlights.
Yeah. Well, that, and also we brought up last stream that freaking Brunson's a warrior, man. This guy's putting his body every freaking game on the line. How many times he's on taking charges, whether they go his way or not. It was a play with Obi, man, where he could have used his body. The guy was going baseline, so he could have trapped him or at least put himself in a position. He moved out of the way. It's like he gave the guy a full range for a layup at the basket. And you're like, are you kidding me? So these guys that are anti-contact, that it's like we got the wrong guys, man. Oh my God. So Brunson, hey, we knew from day one that he was going to have issues on defense. He's a little guy. This this league in a few years, everyone's going to be like 6'6" and above. There'll be a few splatters of 6 foot or 6'2" guys around, but it's land of the giants going forward. Hardwill, his nephew, and everything that you see is 6'8" guards out there. Everyone's is huge. So, but you can go, you can mask it with the right team, but you can't mask it when you don't have effort, man.
Yeah, you're talking
or
about,
you don't have intelligence. You have to have IQ, and it seems we have a dumb freaking team.
Yeah, you mentioned, everybody has big players out there on the court. And for that reason, a lot of teams look to try and switch everything. That way they can stay in front of, opposing guards or opposing perimeter players and not allow them to penetrate and collapse the defense and get their offense going. And you look at the way we're defending as if we're trying to go up against Kobe back in 2007, where everything was, kind of handled out there, ISO heavy. The ball doesn't move much. But now with the introduction of teams like the Golden State Warriors and, the San Antonio Spurs and the way they move the ball and play offense, it has given other teams ideas of how to beat Tom Thibodeau's defense. So, we're trying to go out there and do things that worked back in 2006, 2007, when the game of basketball has kind of changed. And yes, there have been some tweaks here and there by Tom Thibodeau, but for the most part, a good team that knows how to move the ball and trust the other, 4 guys out there on the court is going to find a way to get the ball to the open guy when you have 3-4 people packing the paint. And I think that's one thing that we're going to be looking at for the rest of this live stream, kind of going back to Tom Thibodeau's time with the Minnesota Timberwolves and seeing what a lot of, analysts were saying back then. And then, chat, you guys can let us know if anything that you're hearing sounds similar to what we've been experiencing here as Knicks fans. So do us a solid. Make sure you guys are smashing that like button. We've got 88 in chat, but only 35 likes. Do us a solid. Smash that like button. And this is your first time here and you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. Also, let us know in chat. That way we can give you a quick shout out. So before we dive into it, Foxy, anything you want to say before we advance?
Yeah, I shared with you, SV Nation, I shared with Keith and George and JD a shot I took at the game of the Memphis game in crunch time during a timeout. Thibs is on the board. He's putting out the play. RJ's attentive. I think IQ is next to him. And folks, contrary to belief, Julius was really into what Thibs was saying. He was absolutely part of the conversation. He was shaking his head. Johnny Bryant was standing up, looking totally disinterested. He did not pay attention the whole freaking timeout. It wasn't a one glance and then back into what he had absolutely was not paying any attention what the Thibs was saying or saying to one of the guys. Yeah, make sure that he was backing up exactly with Thibs. He was totally disinterested. So I could share the picture on Twitter after. It was crazy, man, that in the crunch time of a game, here's the associate head coach not giving 2 shits of what the hell was going on. And this is the person people like, it's Johnny time. I don't know about that, man. If you're acting like that during a timeout, during crunch time, not telling other guys, make sure you don't do this. If you're staring at the front row, somebody on the front row across the court or something, something's wrong, man. Meaning you're not only losing the players, you're losing the coaches. But to Johnny's defense, so when I shared that shot I took, it was like, are you kidding me? But at the same time, folks, if you watch the game, there's not an element. He's so busy, he's isolated himself, meaning Thibs, from the rest of the team, or most importantly, his assistant coaches. He's standing up. He's like 10, 15 feet away from them, screaming for 48 freaking minutes. But there's not an element at timeouts. You see him walking over and the assistant coach is like, from a coalition standpoint, hey, coach, this and this. It's like my way or the highway. So no wonder Kenny Payne got the hell out of here. No wonder Woodson got the hell out of here. And maybe that's why Johnny Bryan is disinterested, because no matter what I say, this guy's not taking it anyway. So might as well check out the chick in the second row across the way, because
pull a Jordan Poole.
Exactly. So I'm watching stuff, and I've shared this before, taking classes for my draft assessment for years, taking, hoops and point guard academy and stuff like that about body language. It's really important, folks, that the top coaches actually teach courses on this. And the body language I'm seeing from not only the players, but the assistant coaches on the Knicks is a very telling thing that something has to happen soon.
Yep, quick, fast, and in a hurry, because the status quo is not it, man. Definitely some changes have to be made. And we're going to look at some of the reasons why this team has kind of faltered here at the start of the season. Even last season, I mean, everybody wants to point to the season with Thibs, his first year here, where he was able to coach us up into the 4th seed and whatnot. But you have to remember, those were different circumstances. And I don't want to diminish what he did, because at the end of the day, everybody across the league played under those same circumstances. But you can't compare the environment that the team played in 2 years ago to the environment that we've been playing in over the last couple. And I think the team just has not responded once we've been back into the normal NBA environment. And I think this time for us to make a move. And also, if you're on the fence, this live stream is for you, because we're going to be showing some of the deficiencies of Tom Thibodeau as head coach. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. And we're going to start off with a nice quote from Winston Churchill. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. All right. So let's get into the very first slide. So here we have some articles that we pulled up discussing and documenting Tom Thibodeau's time with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And a lot of these articles are from 2017, 2018, 2019. So this is not even taking into account what's going on during his tenure here with the Knicks. So you can see Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns constantly questioned Tom Thibodeau's defensive schemes. The 5 steps to every Tom Thibodeau coaching cycle. Tom Thibodeau doesn't change, and that's a problem for the Timberwolves. A look at how Tom Thibodeau's defensive scheme holds the Timberwolves back. Tom Thibodeau is destruction. Now, mind you, these headlines were found, I'm Joe Schmo with a nice camera and a mic, and I was able to do a Google search and find all this information readily available. So you're telling me somebody in the front office went through the whole vetting process and didn't see some of the information that we're going to be displaying today? And if they did, they decided, I guess maybe Tom Thibodeau expected him to change. But as we all know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So for them to think that Tom Thibodeau was going to figure it out this season, I think was a misfire on their part. So look at this. Go ahead.
On that magazine tier of a look at how Tom Thibodeau's defensive scheme holds the Timberwolves back. Mm-hmm. Folks, the font size is too small, but unfortunately, right underneath it, it says Tom Thibodeau's famous strong side defensive scheme is holding Minnesota back. So his allegiance to his defensive scheme is, so like Keith said, this is not an isolated data point. This is from all these different authors at different publications, all saying, what we just said about, history's repeating itself all over again for us here in New York, of the issues that he had, not only in Minnesota, but the truth is, if you go further back, that he had in Chicago.
Yep. And the crazy part is, the front office, I think they should have seen it happening in real time. Tom Thibodeau was in Chicago. He had Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson. Tom Thibodeau goes to Minnesota. He brings in Derrick Rose, Taj Gibson. Didn't work. Now he's over here in New York, and who does he bring over? Lo and behold, Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson. And somehow the front office thought it didn't work in the last 2 spots, even though Derrick Rose got injured in Chicago, so we'll say that much. But you're talking about a Taj Gibson and Derrick Rose who are much past their prime, and now you're bringing them over here and thinking that they're going to be able to help this team compete for some championships just because they have a better understanding of Tom Thibodeau's scheme, especially a scheme that has proven to not be as effective effective nowadays as it was back in 2006, 2007 when he was, using it to give Kobe trouble when he was helping with the Celtics.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so let's go look at the first slide. Tom Thibodeau doesn't change. He says he plays his favorite players 10 to 20 minutes per game too much. When opposing teams take out their starters to rest, Thibs doesn't. And you want some proof of that? Just look at, go to NBA.com and break down the box score period to period. You'll see Julius Randle playing 12 minutes in a quarter. You'll see R.J. Barrett playing 11 minutes in a quarter, subbing back in with 7 minutes left to go in the second. And these are the little tricks Tom Thibodeau does to try and get an edge on opposing teams. And unfortunately, when you do this, after a while, guys are not going to have the energy, whether it be to compete late in the fourth quarter or compete in the playoffs like we saw in year one when we did not have enough to beat the Atlanta Hawks. So
SC Nation, it's really important that the bullet points that Keith's captured here, this is from his Timberwolves days. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is that we're saying, folks, does this sound familiar? As he goes through these points, doesn't this sound familiar? That this, so it's crazy. I'm sorry, you keep going.
No problem.
Yeah.
You look at some of the minutes that the Timberwolves were playing. He was playing Cat crazy amount of time. He was playing Andrew Wiggins, 38, 40 minutes. Jimmy
Wiggins. Butler, exactly.
An insane amount of minutes. And now we're starting to see it over here with some of our guys. So once again, this is showing that Tom Thibodeau refuses to change up his approach, and it didn't work in Minnesota. And, I don't believe it's working here in New York. It's up to you to make the determination. I don't want to speak for you. All right.
Yeah, and the second bullet point I love.
Mm-hmm. You want to read it?
The Timberwolves have performed terribly in the fourth quarter when their best players are tired and burnt out while their opponents aren't. We've lived that last year. I think we're 25th, I think we're 25th in the third quarter this year and 20th. So we're at least not 30th like last year in fourth quarter. But you cannot come back against these teams, and especially if you play all your guys. George did brilliant work last year, showing this on into the Knicks verse of they were so burnt out from the third quarter. There was nothing left in crunch time, the last 5 minutes of a game. So he did this in Minnesota. And now history is repeating itself. He's doing it here last year, and now it's happening all over. That the minutes he's playing, it's just nothing left.
Yep. Totally agree with you there, Foxy. And Gregory Lee says, Keith brought receipts, my man. Let's go. We did more than just bring receipts. We actually have film. You see the third bullet point. Thibs ushered in a defensive revolution with his strong side overload, but the offenses have struck back by downsizing to put more shooting on the floor. And here I was able to pull a couple of plays. Most of them are from the Phoenix Suns game, but there's also a few other plays. I also got some of the plays from A. Pacheco on Twitter, so make sure you guys are tuned in. But as you can see, we'll run it back just a little bit, just so you guys can get a better understanding. But you'll see the play breaks down, and we'll look at the Knicks. You see, everybody is now moving away from the weak side and kind of trying to pack the paint to not allow any penetration or anything to happen in the paint. And you can see now it allows the Suns to get a wide open shot, virtually uncontested. And you might question who is at fault in this one, but you can see it's Julius Randle's man. He's camping in the paint. And you can see the Phoenix Suns are saying, look, this guy's about to go to the corner, and he's already positioned to set a screen on Mitch so that he can't rotate over to now contest the shot. And you'll see virtually, wide open shot, and the Suns are able to knock it down and get the bucket. We have us. Go ahead. Were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, folks, from a technical standpoint, his defensive scheme is basically packing the paint, as Keith said earlier, overloading the strong side. So he shifts an additional help defender or two towards the ball to jack up pressure, covering the weak side with a partial zone. And a lot of this came in when Kobe Bryant. So it was basically a defense for Kobe because of his ISO. So so if they cleared out for Kobe, or isolation post up or basic side pick and roll, they were swallowed up by that extra defender. but he didn't take into account that the league would see this, and then they designed saying we just have to put shooters and the players as they converge, they'll kick it around and kill you. As we're seeing as Keith is showing you now, they just rotate that ball, and all of a sudden you're having open practice shots.
Yep. And it's ironic, too, because Thibs is the one preaching. The ball moves faster than your feet, or whatever the case may be, whatever saying he runs with. And that's exactly what is used to kill his defenses. So he should be well aware.
Yeah. He wants to trap them at the baseline and stuff like that and in the corners, but they know how to reverse the ball, the players. They're smart. They watch film, too,
Yep. And here, once again, we'll see in this play, Julius Randle, he's going to cheat over to try and pack the paint. But what happens now is when this happens, it forces Jalen Brunson, who you can see, to kind of be in a zone and be responsible for these two defenders out here on the three-point line. And Jalen Brunson is not a tall man. So if you have a point guard that, has some precision passing and has the ability to fit passes into some tight windows, it allows them to, convert some of these passes that you hear Clyde say, should never happen in the game. So here you see, just throws it right over Jalen Brunson, and boom, wide open corner three. Easy bucket. And then, so when you're wondering why the Knicks are giving up so many open looks, it's because that's the way Tom Thibodeau is scheming the defense. And honestly, me, first time, I thought, it was just, Julius Randle just going out there doing his own thing. But it seems like that's exactly where Tom Thibodeau wants him to be for his defense.
I on some of the things, but I don't even know how Thibs could condone some of the stuff we'll see on Randle. It's in that play right there, the reality was that was really Randle's guy. He was playing Brunson's man was really at the top of to the left, the right of the key up there. So it's like, why is he so far into the paint, Randle? He keeps doing that all season. He's like in nowhere land. And
that's the defense, Foxy. That's what I've been trying to say. It seems like that's the way Thibs wants it done schematically. He wants somebody to pack the paint, park in the paint, and then Jalen Brunson is then responsible for those two three-point shooters. And you see it sometimes as well with Cam. When Cam is weak side, you see Cam contesting a lot of, threes in which the ball handler was initially wide open, and it's in similar situations like this where Cam is on the weak side and he's now responsible for two guys out on the three-point line. Because when you collapse the defense like that to try and wall up the paint, it then gives defenses advantages on the weak side. They have the numbers advantage.
Yeah, because after that happens, how many times do we see the Knicks players looking at each other like, well, weren't you supposed to do that? Or they're looking at it, no, we did what we were supposed to do, but this is a shitty defensive scheme, man.
And now you understand why guys like Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns did not. Exactly. Now you understand, because it's like, all right, who do we complain? You heard the same thing with the Nets. That's why they got Steve Nash out of there. The fact that they didn't really know how to hold anybody accountable because they didn't know who was responsible for guarding who.
Yeah. Hey, our friend Hinton Murphy's in the chat. Hopewell as well. And as always, has a great one. Bullock saved Randle. That's why he was important. We've mentioned this, that he was the quarterback. That there were plays where you'd see Bullock when he was here literally had his hand on a Knick player and pushing him to go into the right area. And like we've also talked about, it drives us crazy. The players now that really only do that are Quickly and Grimes. So the youngest players are the ones that are pointing, trying to get everyone have the right defensive assignments. Where the hell are the vets doing that?
Totally agree with you, Foxy. So let's move to another play that we have. This is again from the Phoenix game. We'll see they're bringing the ball up, and now just keep an eye on the Knicks and where they're positioned. So you see a pick and roll start to occur. Now, once again, you see Jalen Brunson. Remember, Foxy, you said, sometimes Julius Randle's in no man's land. Well, look, Jalen Brunson is in no man's land, and now he's coming over to load up the paint and put more bodies and more defenders in front of the ball handler. Now, unfortunately, this leaves Jalen Brunson's man wide open for a three. And as you can see, as the play goes, you have a point guard that's able to find his man, and wide open three again for the Phoenix Suns. And then not only that, the volume. You mentioned how many threes the Knicks gave up against the Mavs. Look at the type of looks that they're giving up. And the Mavs went out there and shot how many threes? What was it, 37?
They
Well,
shot.
Mavs didn't
how
shoot
many-
well, but you look
How
at the
many
game
did they
against
attempt? They
37.
attempted 61.
61.
They attempted 61.
Oh shoot, I'm looking at the wrong game.
So
I didn't know we got beat that many times by the Mavs. I thought we was up.
yeah, no, they shot 24 for 61, and we shot 10 for 31. That's why I said 14. They made 14 more threes, so that's 42 points. Bingo, catnip, game over.
Bada bing, bada boom. So you see the amount of open looks that we're able to give up, and the fact that they're wide open and these guys are able to knock down the three. This is a different league. You know, the amount of 3-point attempts per game is up, and the ability for these guys to knock down the three is up. From
And tonight is the wrong team to play this defense with, folks.
Exactly.
They will light up the three. They have so many elite 3-point shooters, Cleveland. It's crazy.
Exactly. And so let's go to another game. We've been giving the Phoenix Suns too much love. Let's look at someone else now. So now here we see once again.
Hey, real quick. We got to find out if Jalen has an incentive for the number of charges he takes. Because I agree with you. He's in no man land. Like, the only thing that you could possibly think of, first of all, you got a huge guy coming at you.
Right.
So you're not going to block him or nothing. The only thing you could possibly hope is that you're going to get a charge. So, but what are you doing, Jalen? We love you on offense, but what the hell are you doing on defense, man?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's hard for me to hold. Like, that's why it's hard for the players sometimes, I would assume, to hold them accountable. Because is that what Jalen Brunson is supposed to be doing defensively? Because if that's what he's supposed to be doing, it's hard to hold him, at fault. If that's what Thibs is telling him to do, and he's in the position and he just lacks the ability to now recover and get back, then that's on Thibs for asking him to try and play that type of defense, knowing he wouldn't be able to recover in time to actually contest that 3-point shot. And that's why, like they said earlier in the show, the coach has to adjust to the talent that he has on the roster, not the talent has to adjust to the coach. And, unfortunately, it seems like that's what Thibs has been trying to do at every stop in his career.
Poetry, my friend. It was sheer poetry.
And so now let's look at this game. So you can see, screen, they're able to penetrate. Brunson understands where he's supposed to go defensively, but he's just way out of position trying to stop penetration. And again, the penetration is too easy against the screen. Who was that messing up? That's RJ? RJ. So you can see RJ doesn't do a good job fighting through the screen, gets lost. Now Sims has to step up. Jalen Brunson out of position, has to run down and chase down the 3-point shooter. Easy offense in the modern NBA. Maybe back in, 2001, 2002, when you had final scores where it was like, 96 to 89, that might have worked, where you weren't putting up as many 3-point shots and the guys weren't as good 3-point shooters. But if you look at what the average 3-point percentage is nowadays and the way that the guys are able to knock down threes from any spot on the court, this is not the greatest defense to be playing. And Thibs continues to throw it out there for some reason.
Yeah, Kaiser Sose again with a gem, team space and pace, while we still playing offense and defense like it's in the 90s.
Facts. That is a Snapple fact. Thank you for making that point, for putting that Kaiser out there. All right, so we got one more play for you guys, and then we'll continue with the slides. So here we see this play. This time it's on Obi. Obi comes now to try and tag the roller, and he's out of position to recover and guard the three. So once again, you're starting to see why this team is giving up so many easy 3-pointers. It's the way that they're either trying to guard it using Thibs, strong side defense, or the fact that, guys just aren't in position and are allowing guys or their guys to get open out there on the 3-point line. So we'll run it back again just so you guys can see.
Yeah, that guy flying for the year, I wonder who it is. Closing out.
All right. Oh, what'd I do? Okay, here we go. We're back. All right, so we have another slide we want to put on screen for you guys.
Yeah. Why doesn't Jay Boogie do a song about Hobie leaking out and freaking out?
Bars.
Obi!
Obi!
Yeah, Obi don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, Obi got to figure it out. I still got, the young guys aren't really playing great so far this season. It's been very inconsistent, whether you're talking about Quick, Obi, Grimes, Cam, RJ. For the most part, extremely inconsistent this season. But I still have faith that these are some quality guys on the roster, and I think we can either get value for them in a trade, or we can have them on this roster and they can be, key core pieces when we do get to a scenario where we're actually being competitive in the playoffs. It's just, trying to bring in that cream of the crop, that marquee talent to pair with them. And I don't know if they want to, one, play with a coach like Tom Thibodeau, and two, I'm not sure if Leon Rose in the front office are really the guys that are going to put us in a position to make a trade in which we can look at it and say, okay, this one hurts, but we can understand the logic behind the deal and we can live with it. Because any deal for a superstar is going to hurt, but
Hey, we got a nice super sticker.
Hey, salute to Gail Barry. Thank you for the super sticker, $20 super sticker. We really appreciate that. Your contributions help us do this live stream. It helps pay for the Zoom subscription and things like that. So that way we can go over the 40-minute limit for Zoom calls. So thank you for that contributions. Greatly appreciated. And definitely that was a fire super sticker. Thank you for the award.
Yeah, John Talento just wanted to say hi, and we love John Talento, the legend. Hey, Andrew K, got to give Obi more of a chance before giving up on him. I thought of Obi the other day when we played Detroit and Kevin Knox. So Kevin Knox had all of these games that we saw on the box score prior to us playing them, that he was playing well, shooting well and everything. But if you watch the game, with all the things that Knox trying to resurrect his career, he's still missing defensive assignments now with Detroit. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're like saying to yourself, son, why didn't you learn the lesson that your way to a future in this league starts, you could shoot the three, but for you to shoot the three, you got to play defense and know what the hell you're doing. And I thought about Obi. It's like saying, hey, man, you've been in the league long enough now that you cannot consistently have these defensive mishaps, where you're confused and like you're running around like with its head cut off. That come on, man. So it's like these young guys, Jesus, man, get it together.
Yeah, definitely have a lot of work to do. But let's look at this slide. Look at the first bullet point. Not only is Thibs' defensive scheme outdated, which we gave you some examples previously, it doesn't make use of the potential defensive strengths of his roster. And that's something you could say as well with the current squad. You look at some of the things that we're doing. Look, Deuce McBride can't get minutes, and he's probably one of the better perimeter defenders on this team. You look at Jericho Sims, another guy, doesn't make use of what he can do out there defensively with the athleticism and his ability to stay in front of guards on the perimeter. So those are just two
you and
examples.
I said Cam, people laughed at us. You got to have Cam in there. He's going to be disruptive. Mm-hmm. Yo, but this is a perimeter league. You need a person like Cam out there.
Yep. And he got usurped. He hasn't played well since hasn't played great since he's returned from the groin injury, but I don't think he should have lost that starting job. He should have come back from the injury, started, and then if he doesn't play well, you can then reassess the starting lineup. But for him to lose it due to injury, I think was definitely tough. Also, you look at the next bullet point. Thibs values intelligent defenders at the expense of needing raw athletes who can fight through screens and make plays on the perimeter. I mean, look at the athletes that Thibs has had on his squad throughout the years. He really has not done them justice for the most part. You look at Derrick Rose during his time with the Bulls, ran him into the ground. Now Derrick Rose is at the point where you have Reddit users seeing him out there on the street and saying they feel bad for him. And even now on the squad, he looks, somewhat like a shell of himself. Could he play better with a contender with other pieces around him? Maybe, but right now with this squad, I think he's not necessarily the best fit. You look at his time out there, mini in Minnesota. Cat, not too thrilled with him. Andrew Wiggins, he wasn't able to unlock Andrew Wiggins. He had to go all the way to Golden State to be in an environment where he can become the true player some people expected him to be coming out of the draft. And look at this team with the New York Knicks. Look at the amount of athletes we have on this squad that Thibs has no idea what to do with. He has no idea what to do with them. We mentioned, Cam. Doesn't know what to do with Cam. Cam is out there in the corner for the majority of plays offensively, and then defensively, he's the most disruptive, I think, perimeter player we have, and Thibs really can't, find ways to get him out there on the court with players like Grimes and Quick. You look at Obi Toppin. Thibs has no idea what to do with Obi Toppin offensively and defensively, to the point where Obi Toppin now has to leak out every possession just to get some buckets up on the board. Jericho Sims, one of the most freakish athletes on the squad, and you still have Ihart getting major minutes over him unless unless there's like some significant foul trouble to get him out there on the court. So Thibs does not know what to do with high-level athletes in the NBA, and that's exactly what you need on your squad in order to be a successful team. So why are we continuing to, put out a guy in Tom Thibodeau that does not know what to do with some of the players that you need on a championship level squad? So me personally, I think those first 2 bullet points on this slide really scream, really just show how Thibs has not been doing the most, or not been getting the most out of this roster.
But also, again, it gets to the general manager. I was watching the Pelicans the other day. Dyson Daniels, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, forget about Ingram and Zion. You're like saying, look at the size of them. They're fast, they're long on the perimeter. That's today's NBA. You look at Toronto, that's if you're building a team as a general manager, that's what you go for. That's why I love Jalen Brunson, but I would have taken a step back and said, Jesus Christ, Indiana, how did they get Tyrese Halliburton? That is the prototype. Jesus Christ, how did Atlanta Hawks get DeJounte Murray? That's the prototype. We got a guy who's a real gritty guy. I love Brunson, but there's limitations in today's NBA on the defensive side of the ball. There's not a damn thing you can do if you're 6'1" and you're on a switch against a 6'6", 6'7" guy. It's you're toast. So putting this team together, so when you see teams like the Pelicans and everything, you're like saying, that's a modern day roster, the way that they're constructing it. What the hell are we doing?
Yep. I hear you on that one. Gregory Lee says Dolan needs to hire Keisa Foxy or CP at Knicks Fans TV. Down to the sim of Nothing But Knicks. Nick of Time Show, Jay Ellis can coach better than Thibs. Gregory Lee, thank you for putting us in the same.
You forgot JD and George.
Yeah, they should be there as well. But thank you, Gregory, for putting us in the same sentence as some of the OGs. Definitely appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's definitely a major compliment. So thank you. Let's see what else we got going on. Let's look at the 3rd bullet point. The Wolves are young, and players like Andrew Wiggins have not realized their defensive potential, and they miss rotations and give up the middle on pick and rolls. That sounds exactly like what we're dealing with here. We have a guy like Cam, even RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett has definitely taken a step back defensively, and we thought that with a guy like Tom Thibodeau, the way he coaches and the way he tries to push to make sure defense is played and, there's no plays taken off or whatever, or no possessions taken off or whatever the case may be. We thought RJ was going to benefit from some of that coaching and tutelage, but he's taken some massive steps back defensively. And I think the issue with this team is when you have a defense that you don't have faith in, teams start to let go of the rope. And that's why we're seeing this team have so many demoralizing losses where we're not competitive. So, let's do a quick exercise. Foxy, how many losses have you looked at this season and you would say that it's a bad loss? If you want, I can pull up the schedule and we can go through them.
Well, I think what 3-11 against 500 teams.
Well, not necessarily bad losses as to who we lost to, but the lack of effort in those games.
Oh, yeah, they're, I don't know, 5 games like that?
That's roughly 5 to 6. Also, chat, let us know how many games do you think the Knicks had in which you said it was a bad loss, in which the effort and the intensity just wasn't there?
Hey, we have a super chat from the wonderful Buzzer Beater.
Oh, salute to Buzzer Beater. We'll let us know in chat, but we'll answer this super chat real quick. It says, why isn't Ihart in more pick and rolls, pick and pops? Because Tom Thibodeau is so stuck in his ways that he doesn't understand. You're given a center with a unique skill set, and yet you don't put him in a position where he can use those skills. Because Ihart himself is confused. We talk about him dealing with the Achilles and whatever the case may be, but he's saying Thibs wants him to be like Mitch. Why? Why is he trying to be like Mitch, especially offensively? Defensively, you say you want him to be like Mitch. I get it. All right, cool. That's how you want the center to play defense. But offensively, why are you not changing things up to use Ihart's skill set where he's a gifted passer? I want to say he can knock down the three. It hasn't come to fruition yet, but he can shoot them and you won't say, ugh. So he can do those things, and you're not putting him in a type of offense where you can unlock those attributes out there on the court. You have him trying to do the same things as Mitchell Robinson when he is not the same player as Mitchell Robinson. Why is the front office, like, this is why the front office and the head coach are not on the same page. You bring in a stretch, at this point I don't even want to say stretch five because he's shooting like he's not shooting good. But you bring in a guy that can play, more than, 5 feet to under the basket, where he can actually play 15, 20 feet away and make some gifted passes and open things up a little bit more offensively. But you're trying to use him like Mitchell Robinson, where all he's doing is just rolling to the basket time and time again. Makes no sense.
Hey, Jericho Sims showed offensive plays at Westchester the other game that he hasn't been able to show as a New York Knick, where he got the ball and did a jump hook. So absolutely, but on that third bullet point, folks, the thing that, and again, keys to this work, and he was able to capture from all of these different publications when Thibs was at Minnesota. The thing that I think just jumps off the page to me is the Wolves are young, and players like Andrew Wiggins have not realized their defensive potential. So everyone says Thibodeau is a guru on defense. So Wiggins had to leave a defensive guru to go to Golden State, and everybody saw what he did against Tatum last year to help them win the championship. He's all NBA. So people questioned his motor early in his career. No, he had a shitty coach named Tom Thibodeau. He had to get the hell away from Tom Thibodeau for him to realize his potential, and now he's an all-world defensive player. So for them to say that, it's unbelievable. But were they missed rotations? Didn't we just talk about that? This is what was happening then. Pick and rolls where we're saying, Jesus Christ, the only one who can play a pick and roll that we see consistently is Jericho Sims, and he doesn't play him.
Mm-hmm. Not one bit, and it's crazy, especially when he should be taking some minutes from iHeart. Especially if he's dealing with a bad Achilles.
Yeah, but you give $60 million to Mitch as a game where you're like, yo, monster. And then the next game, what happened? When is he going to put a string together 15, 20 straight games, Mitch, where you're like, he's a monster, man. So I don't want to see one game where you're like, whoa, look at all those offense, 20 rebounds, look how many offensive rebounds, and the next game is like, was he even there? And against, I think he should have been able to eat against the centers on the Mavericks, man.
That's a fact. Yeah. So I'm looking in chat. I see some people say we had 3 bad losses: OKC, Brooklyn, Dallas. I see another one. Another person says all 12 losses. We see Gregory Lee says 8. So let's. Marvin Smith says 8. So let's run through them real quick. So the first loss against Memphis, I wouldn't call that a bad loss. You, Foxy?
What? No. Yeah. Well.
115, 112 in overtime. We were competitive. When I say bad loss,
no, absolutely. In the refs,
we were non-competitive.
That was the game where it was not only there was a goaltending call against Brunson that they didn't call, but it was something else.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I was at Knicks Fan TV event. I was a little tipsy towards the end of the show. Towards the end of the game, a little not all the way there, but you know how that goes. So Memphis, I wouldn't call that a bad loss. Milwaukee, the first loss, I don't recall that being a bad loss. We lost by 11, but I don't remember us being completely outplayed and outclassed. I feel like that came towards the end, and then they went back and forth with the time management. You know how that goes towards the end of the games, where teams can kind of pull away with free throws.
Yeah.
So Cleveland, that was the first bad loss. Then we doubled that up with a bad loss against Atlanta. Then again, Boston. So that's 3 bad losses within the span of 4 games. So now Brooklyn, that was another bad loss. So that's 4. Then you have Oklahoma City. That's a bad loss. That's 5. Golden State. I feel like the Golden State one was a bad one. No, I felt like they had their way. We're wrong. Yeah, it was, because that was on the West Coast trip, and we were losing our minds, and we had to fire Thibs right away. So yeah, so that's Golden State 6, Phoenix 7. We lost to Portland in overtime. We lost to Memphis in a competitive game. So yeah, 8. So yeah, I agree with a lot of you guys. So let's do some quick math. So 8 out of 13. So that means we have been non-competitive in 62% of our losses. And it's not like we don't have a lot of them. Because if you look at the Pistons records, they're trying to lose, and they might only have 4 or 5 more losses than us. How many they got? So they have about 5 more losses than us, which is a lot, especially so young into the season. But they're rebuilding, so it is what it is. So 62% of our losses, this team has been completely non-competitive, and we played 23 games. So let's do 8 divided by 23. So in almost 40% of our games, this team has been non-competitive. And that's not a position where you should move on from your head coach to see if things can change. Like I said, we're only 20-some-odd games in, 23 games in. We've got a little under 60 games left. This would be enough time, I think, to fully evaluate the roster, move on from Tom Thibodeau, and see if somebody else can come in as an interim, whether it be Johnny Bryant or some people even say Dice if he wants to step up and be interim. At least have another voice in that locker room, another system to see if these guys are better than what they've seen throughout the season. And if they're not, you just pivot and you make moves in the offseason. But at least you have the information, you have the data to make an educated decision. And that's what we want as Knicks fans. We want the front office, whoever's in charge, to be able to get as much information on these players before we do something that we can't turn around from. And that's, ship them out of town, not extend them, things like that.
Well said. That's beautiful. There's nothing, that's absolutely perfectly said.
Thank you for that, Foxy. Let's see what we have going on in chat.
My guy Hin Murphy's asking me about Anthony Black on Arkansas, 6'7". I'm worried about him, Hin. That he's just an average athlete, so I don't know. He lacks that elite athleticism at 6'7". He has good reach. It's all about him shooting. If he can drop the 3 ball, then he'll be okay. But the one on that team, though, he played his first game, Nick Smith. He's the real deal, folks. Also, just real quick, folks, one of my sleepers that I've been watching, sleeper for the Knicks, 6'7" wing, Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine. 6'7", shooting over 50% from 3. You get a chance on your crazy cable stations and stuff, check out Maxwell Lewis. You got a super chat?
Yep, from Marshmallow. Thank you for the $5 super chat. We really appreciate the support. Says the Pistons may suck right now, but they are in a much better place than we are, in my opinion. Do not disagree with you there, Marshmallow. I said it before the season started. There are a few young teams that I like. Pistons being one of them, Thunder being another team, and I think the Rockets was the third one that I had mentioned. Young teams that have very, they give us hell for saying elite talent, but they've got elite young talent that could be more in this league. You look at a guy like Ivy. I know he's struggled, I think, defensively to start, but the athletic ability that he has is something off the chart. You can't look at too many players in the league and say, they're as athletic. Also, Duran, we looked at him. He was a beast against us. He's a young, raw player. And I think he's going to get better over time. Cade Cunningham, he didn't even play in the last game we played against them. So that's another young player that they're going to keep an eye on. And
they're the Wembayama sweepstakes. You imagine that core of Wembayama, Cunningham, Ivy. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, how are you going to compete there?
Yeah, so definitely, I agree with you, Marshmallow. The Pistons, not good right now, but their trajectory is something I would be pretty happy with if I was a Piston fan. This would be a rough few years to start, but
yeah. And then Orlando, if Orlando gets somebody like a Scoot Henderson next to Paolo.
Yeah. I mean, they got Bowl over there. They have their own Wemby. Wemby Light.
I don't know about Wemby Light, man. He's the real deal.
I hear you on that one. All right, so Foxy, let's dive back into Tom Thibodeau, and you were able to bring forth this pretty interesting article, the 5 steps to every Tom Thibodeau coaching cycle. So you want to dive into it a little bit further and discuss it?
Yeah, folks, this was written almost 3 years ago. So it's really scary, like the stuff that Keith was pointing out from his research. That what happened. So the 5 steps is the first one is toasting the hire. So, everyone's saying, Thibs he's a good sound hire. He's been around the league. He's a coach of the year. He's a defensive genius. So they hire him. And then the first year, with the Bulls, I think the Bulls were 21 21 games better. He did the same thing, and also obviously our first year. So he has a great first year. But then the playing time and the practices start to set in. Notorious long and unrelenting practices. He runs players into the ground. And, once when Luol Deng, I love this thing, came to the Bulls practice facility to get a few shots up alone, he unexpectedly ran into Thibodeau. His new coach put the unsuspecting Deng through one of the toughest workouts he's ever had in his life. And real quick, I'll get right back to this. I knew an ominous sign for the last game, because they said the Knicks had a really hard practice that day before the game. And I was like, this guy kills him. They never have legs. He kills them. So getting back, so his coach ran him through one of the hardest workouts. In 2017, the Wolves took a 14-hour flight to China for a worldwide training camp as part of the preseason. Upon landing, Thibs called for a practice. They didn't have time to unpack, Taj Gibson said. And Thibs' sessions are notorious long, unrelenting, and earned him reputation as he cares about winning above all else, a coach who runs his players into the ground. And as Keith said earlier, in 3 of Thibs' 5 years with the Bulls, either Jimmy Butler or Luol Deng led the league in average minutes. When Deng was traded, one scouting report literally said he's been run into the ground by his coach. His injury and Derrick Rose's multiple injuries are often blamed on Thibodeau's tactics. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we're seeing this all over again. And then, so what happens is, what happens in the playing time and the practices during the stages, the players start getting exhausted, and the promise starts to spoil, and the frustration starts to boil over. And once they no longer have the energy to compete when it matters. So, the regular season is supposed to be the preparation for the postseason, but it never occurs if they make it. So then you go to step number 4, the meeting. So the meeting is, the media leaks the story, fans panic that they have a players only meeting. And it was July 2015, Derrick Rose, and everybody's like always saying, Derrick Rose is Thibs' boy. In January of 2015, Derrick Rose, frustrated by playing such heavy minutes without more positive results, told reporters, "Everyone has to be on the same page. Until then, we're gonna continue to get our ass kicked." The day after, according to ESPN's Nick Friedel, players were expecting a day off, but Thibs made him practice. And what happens is they have the team meeting, and a very short time later, the end comes and he gets fired. So all of this that happened, this article almost 3 years ago, we're seeing all of these, the same thing. He got hired. Hey, he's a good, solid foundational coach. And then, wow, look at the first year we had. But then all of a sudden you're hearing the things come out like, they're exhausted, man. They're exhausted. How many games last year, as a truist that you, me, and the SV Nation, we know that when we see shots hitting the front of the rim, they got heavy legs, and that means Thibs is running them too hard in practice, man. They didn't have the game, and then obviously the players only meeting where we can't take this shit anymore. Let's talk amongst ourselves. And usually, a few weeks after that players only meeting, that's when Thibs gets fired. And I forgot who said it, shout out in the chat, but somebody said, if we get blown out, and Keith and I were talking off camera on this, if they have another outing today as they did, this may be Thibs' last game if they come out with nothing tonight in the tank.
Remember, I predicted he'd be out of here by December 7th. So I would not be shocked if after a poor showing, he ended up getting the axe.
Yep.
And absolutely. I mean, look at the record since we had that team meeting. That team, I'm part of the team. So after they had that meeting, that was right before the home trip. I mean, the West Coast trip, right?
I believe so.
So since then, we've had 2 wins, Utah, Denver, then a third one against Oklahoma, and a 4th against Detroit. So that's 4 wins. And then we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've been 4-6 since then.
Yeah. But look at some of the teams we played, though.
Exactly. You look at the wins, the win against Detroit, Oklahoma City, even though they beat the brakes off of us. Denver without Jokic and who else was missing? Aaron Gordon. Yep. and then we beat Utah, who has started to come down from their high.
But I don't think Laurie was there that night, was he?
I think they were healthy. Let me pull up the box.
Oh.
I'm looking at it. Yeah, I thought Laurie was there. Let's double check.
I'm getting old. I forget stuff.
Yeah, Laurie played 30 minutes, 5 of 11, 2 of 5 from the three-point line, 13 points.
Hey, folks, just real quick, a couple things. We have 173 people in the chat. We have 70 likes. Please do us a solid. And please hit that like so we can get up to that algorithm, that 100 level that YouTube loves. So please hit that like. Please hit that subscribe. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. As we say, it's the one-stop shop for all Knicks news, rumors, and analysis. Please turn on that all reminder bell so you don't miss out on the wonderful content. If you can't catch it live, shout out to the replay gang. We love chopping it up with the comments. And shout out to the best mods on the planet. We appreciate all you do. One last thing, folks. I do have a favor of the 171. Do me a favor. Keith's birthday was on Friday. Could you just send out a happy birthday wishes to my boy Keith, one of the most wonderful people I know. So give him a proper happy birthday. So we have some depressing New York Giants, some depressing New York Knicks, some depressing New York Jets, some depressing New York Yankees. But thank God we have Keith. He makes us all happy. So happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you for that birthday shout out, Foxy. I really do appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. We're not done yet. Just wanted to let you guys know, really do appreciate the support. We're up against it. So this is going to low key become a watch along at this point. not that we'll be here for the entirety of the game, but we just have a few more slides we wanted to get through before we sign off. Also, we have a super chat from the generous Marshmallow. Thank you for tuning in. It says Thibs and the front office just got far too much credit for making us ordinary. They also have avoided making the disaster trade where we have no picks. We had such a low bar when they all came in. Facts. And that's why I think some people would be willing to allow Leon Rose to have a little bit more of a leash as opposed to Tom Thibodeau, because they have done some stuff right drafting wise. You can look at some of these players, and some people may, differ on a player or two. But for the most part, I think everybody feels like we did solid based on where we were drafting, whether that be the second round picks in Sims or Deuce, even Rokas, who could be a trade piece moving forward, or, what we've done outside of the, Obi pick, which, I wouldn't say it's an issue because of his talent level, just the fact that he's behind Julius Randle. But you look at Quentin Grimes, look at Emmanuel Quickly. Those are first round picks that I think people are, okay with, happy with, and think that those guys can be solid contributors moving forward. So the front office has done some things that I would, they brought in Jalen Brunson. I like that signing, even though we do need more. And then you look at the way we structured some of these deals. Mitchell Robinson, some people take issue with the fact that he's making $17 million the first year, but by the time that contract is done, he's making around 12, 13, if I'm not mistaken. And hopefully he can continue to get better year over year. So by that time, you're looking at that deal as a bargain. You also look at Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has gotten better year over year, and he's also on a descending deal. And everything lines up with the new money that's coming in. So the Knicks should be able to make some moves if we're able to move off of some of the people like Fournier should be gone by then. You'd hope Julius Randle's gone by then. Derrick Rose, he'll be gone by then. So we still have a future. The front office has not completely taken away any future this team has. We're not the Lakers or anything like that. We still have draft capital, whether to trade or make selections. It's just we need a new coach, because even with those draft picks, what are we going to do? We're going to make 3 first round. Let's say we get all the draft selections. We're going to make 3 first round draft picks in 2023, and Thibs is going to play who? None of them. He's going to sit them right there at the end of the bench and tell them to watch and take notes. So at some point, we're going to have to move on from Thibs, especially seeing how outdated his defense and his offense have been so far for the Knicks.
And his communication.
Yep, or lack thereof. Communication
thereof.
from the organization as a whole. We don't know what the plan is. We don't know if it's supposed to be competitive or we're still rebuilding. No clue. I'm just going with the motions. I'm just going with what the product is out there on the court. And this is neither competitive nor rebuilding. I mean, we're kind of rebuilding because we are losing, but we're not losing enough to make to put us in a position where we can get a game changer like a Wemby.
Yeah, and D Rose was very blatant a few weeks ago. He didn't even know what his role is, and he's a vet that has a long relationship with Thibs, and he still is not getting communicated to like what the hell is being expected of him this season.
Yep, and honestly, they should have looked at him and said, honestly, Derrick Rose, your role here is trade bait because we're going to be moving on from you at some point. Simple as that, you know, and I don't want to say Derrick Rose is washed. I just think he might be someone like Kimba. You put him on a more competitive team where there's more veteran talent around him and they're striving to win a championship. Maybe that might uplift his play a little bit. Same thing with Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose has shown the ability to knock down the three. He's built that part of his game, and he's still able to break defenses down and get that floater game going. So he can contribute. I just think his minutes on this team are better used, giving them to a young guy that has a long-term future with this team as opposed to a Derrick Rose, especially if he's going to be grumbling a little bit, talking about he don't know what his role is. Your role is a bench player.
The rumbles are only going to get worse, folks.
Exactly. All right. So
especially as he gets closer to the trade deadline.
Yep. All right. So let's just look how the team has been performing so far this season. You can see the places in which we're doing terrible. They're highlighted in red. So we're 12th in the league in points at 114.6 points per game. We're third in rebounds, 46.4 rebounds per game. But it's crazy. We're third in the league in rebounds, but we just can't get those timely rebounds. You look at some of the games in which we've lost. Yes, we've had difficulty making stops, but I think Alan Hahn said it himself. I forgot which game he said it on the post game, where we're getting stops, we're getting misses, but we're not completing the defensive possession by securing the rebound sometimes. I think that might have been against the Grizzlies. I'm not 100% sure. I have to double check, but this team is solid rebounding in terms of total rebounds, but there's moments where we just get outworked on the boards, and they're at the worst time and the worst situations, and it definitely puts us up against the wall. So solid in total rebounds, but timely rebounding, just not it. You look at us with 21st.
Especially on the offensive, meaning we're giving up way too many second chance points. The last game, man, the Mavericks, they had 24 second chance points.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it was, it wasn't the back game. Maybe it was, I think, the Grizzlies game where Alan Hahn kind of went off on them. Let's see, assists, we're 21st, so we're doing better than last season. Last season, I think we averaged 20 assists per game, right around there, but still
21.9 last year, and we were 30th. Yeah,
we were 30th, but we're still not cracking the top 15 of the league in assists per game, and that's because at times you see us dribble. We lose a lot of confidence in our ability to create, and we lose confidence in our teammates. The ball stops, and then you see a lot of ISO, whether it be Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and RJ. And even though we do get some buckets, I just think it's not the best flow to keep everybody on the court engaged, and I think that's something that definitely has to be worked on.
And the assist alone too, because we can't shoot.
I hear y'all now. Yeah, look at this. We'll skip field goal percentage. We can go to field goal percentage because even that's not great. We're shooting 45.6% from the field, which is good enough for 24th in the league. So again, bottom half of the league, bottom third of the league, and the same thing with 3-point percentage at 31.9, where we are
last in the league.
Last in the league in 3-point percentage. And I know people are saying, "Hey, we should bring Evan Fournier back. This team can't shoot," and et cetera, but you bring him back and the team is still going to have issues now defensively, and even worse than what we're dealing with now. So yes, he might be able to come back and knock down some threes to help buoy that 3-point percentage just a smidge, but he's also going to be allowing other players to put up more points, whether that be at the 2-point line or the 3-point line. We just saw what Jalen Brunson was doing when he was responsible for those two guys in the weak side corner. Imagine if that was Evan Fournier trying to go out there and close out some of those shots.
Yeah, Pepe Le Pew.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, you bring back Evan Fournier, you have to keep in mind that this team already with the defensive rating is towards the bottom third of the league. Look at our defensive rating, 115, which is good enough, which is bad enough to put us 26th in the league. And the offensive rating, 113.1, is good enough for 12th. So even without Evan Fournier, which some people are arguing and saying we should bring him and reinsert him into either the starting lineup or the rotation in general, but offensively, the team has been somewhat decent. They go through stretches where you're like, oh, damn, that's some bad basketball. But when everything evens out, for the most part, we're scoring and we're keeping ourselves in the game offensively. It's defensively where teams just have their way with us out there on the court. And, you look at what, the offensive defensive rating, you put them together, it gives us the net rating, which is negative 1.9, which is once again putting us at 25th in the league.
Yeah. And one of the weird parts is just the points. We're 12th in the points, but we're last in 3 points. So it's saying, well, and as we see it in the box score almost every game, we're eating it up in points in the paint. But that's not today's NBA. Mm-hmm. So we're not shooting the three, getting that extra point. So I'm glad we're doing well on the 2-point percentage or points in the paint. That's not today's NBA, man.
Yep. And so you can see offensive effective field goal percentage 51.5%, which is 26th in the league, and then defensive effective field goal percent, which is 53.2, which is actually decent, good enough for 12th in the league. And then pace, doing solid, right around middle of the road in terms of pace, and I think that's good, especially talking about a Tom Thibodeau team. So there are improvements there. Maybe the old dog is learning some slightly different tricks, not exactly new tricks, but he's trying to switch things up just a smidge, but definitely not enough to keep this team competitive in an extremely competitive Eastern Conference. Speaking about the Eastern Conference, let alone, we got to be competitive in the Atlantic first. We can't even look big picture and say Eastern Conference. We got to hold it down in our own division. And you look at the teams in our division. Nets clearly have more talent. Yeah, clearly have more talent. You look at the Philadelphia 76ers, have more talent. And you also look at the Boston Celtics, have more talent. So things are extremely difficult in our division. And, we have to make a decision. Are we going to try and continue to be a middle of the road type of squad and just, get lost in an era of mediocrity? Or are we going to make the tough decisions and make a move from this head coach and decide that, all right, this is not the path that we want to be taking, and it's time for us to look elsewhere and start anew? All right, so that's it for today's live stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate the support. You guys showed up in full effect. We got 126 in chat, only 96 likes. Can one of you guys, four of you guys, do us a solid? Just get us over that 100 threshold. Not asking for too much. I'm not even asking for 110, 115.
Yeah, I'm asking for a birthday present for Keys. Come on, man. Give my guy 4 more likes if you haven't done it. It takes you half a second. Doesn't cost you a thing. Hit those likes. Hey, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you, Foxy. I really do appreciate that. And also make sure you guys are subscribed. I hope we brought something fresh. We hope we were able to introduce you guys to some new articles and a new way to look at this team, at least defensively, out there on the court when you're making your evaluations. That's the type of thing we try to bring here on Sports Vibes TV, try to give you a new outlook on something, or at least explain why we see things the way we do. And we differ, so we'll present both of our opinions at some point and show some evidence as to why we feel that way. And, we want to bring you value here on Sports Vibes TV. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We go live every Sunday at 6, which has kind of been thrown off because the Knicks have been having all these Sunday games. But we're figuring it out where we're making do. And also, we got over that 105 threshold. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the birthday gift. So before we log off, Foxy, anything you want to say?
Just thanks for your support. We're going through this tough journey together, but as Keith said, that we work awful hard behind the scenes to try to give you different thoughts on solutions of how we can make this team better. So, but there's good news. We'll blink and we'll be talking draft if it continues on this trajectory. We have a lot of good draft talks to have.
Yeah, Foxy, before we log off, Preppy Punk New York City says game predictions. Who you got with it?
Cavs killing us.
You got a score?
No, they're just going to kill us.
All right, so I think the Cavs are going to win, and I think this will probably be somewhat similar to the last game, except will be a little bit more competitive. So I think towards the end, they might pull away, end up winning the game. Let's go 116-102.
Well, the only good thing if we get beat is it gets close to us getting rid of the coach.
Getting rid of Thibs. Facts, man.
An antiquated coach.
If we put on a poor showing, the game actually probably already started. If we put on a poor showing, you got to fire Thibs at this point. What are you waiting for? It's a Sunday. It's a weekend. He's home. You don't got to worry about the appearance of having to send him home by himself on a road trip. It's the perfect time.
And history repeats itself. They had the players only meeting. So what comes next? The end.
Termination. All right, but we'll see what goes on. Thank you guys for tuning in. Preppy Punk NYC, he gives his prediction. He says 120, 110, we lose. Fabian Williams says 103, 100. RJ with the buzzer beater. So just wanted to give you guys a shout out for putting your predictions in chat. We appreciate you engaging with us and tuning in. So once again, I'm Keith, host of Sports Vibes TV. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next Sunday. Can't give you a time yet because I have to make sure, I have to confirm what time the game actually starts. But if it starts around the same time, we'll be back again same time, 4:30. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Keith, joined as always by my co-host and NBA analyst, Stephen Fox, and we're out.
Love you.